Watch this.
Stop me if you've heard this before. A self-proclaimed think tank thinks they have another public institution cornered by controversy. But Idaho's Department of Health and Welfare is pushing back, saying they are not pushing porn literacy in their sex education programs. Planes, trains, and automobiles is how Idahoans send their stuff around the country. Well, what if the trains went away? An averted railroad strike that could have been bad news for farmers. A grand old flag stretched across a canyon of grand proportions. We're stopping by the week-long memorial of 9/11 in Twin Falls, where the emotions might be as big as the suspended standard. All right, the latest Idaho controversy stirred up from the Idaho Freedom Foundation once again puts public education and health districts in their crosshairs. We've seen this before, but last night their claims gained some national notoriety because Fox News parroted the IFF and their claim porn literacy programs are in our public schools, a curriculum distributed through the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare.
And the training materials for this comes from a left-wing group with an innocuous name called Education, Training, and Research, or ETR. And that promotes what they call the queering of education and normalizing the consumption of pornography.
Health and Welfare denies they provide or fund any porn literacy for kids, but the IFF, well, they're not backing down. Once again, just like with the created critical race theory controversy, they claim they have proof. So now would be a good time to bring in Andrew Bartline, who's kind of sorted through the IFF's report on this and what the Health and Welfare, the Department of Health and Welfare has said. How did the IFF arrive at this conclusion, and kind of where does the truth actually lie?
Well, we'll touch on the entry point, Brian, and it is pretty vague. Now, to get to anything that relates the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare to porn literacy curriculum. Now, it's a series of receipts between Health and Welfare and an education nonprofit called Education, Training, and Research. We'll call them ETR. The IFF continues to tout this document, we'll put up for you right now, showing Health and Welfare has purchased education supplies. And these receipts date back to 2016. What are these supplies? The document doesn't say. Again, it's vague. But by that point, IFF made a connection. And they jumped at a specific curriculum from ETR. IFF says Health and Welfare purchased a curriculum from ETR called Reducing the Risk. And the IFF is right. Health and Welfare does offer Reduce the Risk to school districts, a program districts can use to choose or use with parental consent. Families can opt in or opt out for their children to go through that and choose not to go through. But nowhere in the Reduce the Risk curriculum is porn literacy present. But the IFF goes on to say, quote, ETR's Reducing the Risk curriculum promises to teach abstinence. Instead, ETR delivers a variety of approaches, including LGBTQ inclusive curriculum that queers education with an emphasis on gender identity, sexual orientation, and behavior. None of that content is present in Reduce the Risk either. Here's the table of contents. Reduce the Risk is about reducing the risk of pregnancy, sexually transmitted disease, finding yourself in bad situations. Abstinence in this curriculum is touted as the strongest defense to all risk. There's even parts of the curriculum that say, just because you're in love, that doesn't mean you're ready to have sex. Reduce the Risk is narrowly tailored and does not touch IFF's claims about porn literacy. But that didn't stop IFF from releasing promotional videos online to push their report. The original report that makes claims of porn literacy in Idaho, here's part of that video.
Oh, wow, that's so big. I never knew it could be so huge. Hey, Jane, what are you looking at?
She's watching porn, right? Yeah. The video conveniently cuts there. Here's the original clip.
What are you looking at? Oh my gosh, you have to come here and see this. It's pictures of yesterday's winner of the school's annual vegetable growing contest.
That's the part they cut out.
Yeah.
They cut out a part about vegetable growing contest to make it seem like they were talking about pornography. Okay.
And that's kind of the joke, and it'll make sense in a moment here. So there's a little bit more. It'll all come full circle. This video you just saw is called Porn, Fact or Fiction. It is not part of Reduce the Risk. It's not even ETR content. ETR didn't even make the video. IFF criticizes the video for having cartoon nudity, and they're correct. the video does have cartoon nudity. The video has large, overblown cartoon nudity. And it does this to show that the idea of porn and explaining that porn is fake. The video says porn is a fantasy. It is not love. It can be violent. It can be disturbing. It's not real life. And the weird conversation Brian and I just touched on about the school vegetable contest, that's to explain that you may come across porn on accident because it is the internet after all.
I wonder how long the longest cucumber in the world is. Hey, that's not a cucumber. Okay, guys, so if you do come across something on the internet that makes you feel uncomfortable or confused, talk to an adult you trust.
So why is this video relevant? Because ETR has a program called 3 and 30. This is entirely separate from Reduce the Risk. 3 and 30 is a free porn literacy and sex ed program that's available online. And in this program, ETR offers the porn, fact, or fiction video we just talked to you about as an additional resource for, quote, youths and their families who want to learn more. So we started with receipts from health and welfare buying what is believed to be sex ed curriculum. And that curriculum touts abstinence and other protections against risk. We ended at a video that says porn is fake, and the video is not even in our schools or made by either party involved. And that Reduce the Risk curriculum, Brian, it is for students ages 14 to 18. So for a student to go down this rabbit hole and arrive at this video that people will say is inappropriate, they would have had to have been so inspired by the curriculum they learned in class that they looked up the nonprofit that made that curriculum, went on their website, found footnotes of additional resources to get to that video.
And this is a theme we've seen before with IFF. We mentioned critical race theory. And we talked about this a little bit yesterday. It's like saying because you and Jay Tust went to the same college, somehow you brush your teeth the same way.
I hope so. Jay's got good teeth.
And the thread that they're trying to make here, and it doesn't make any sense, but pointing out, okay, here are the holes, and also that isn't even a factor in our schools, which they claim it is.
The organization that provides the curriculum has it, but the specific curriculum that health and welfare is distributing to districts that they can choose to use or not, it just doesn't add up. There are puzzle pieces, they just don't all fit together.
All right. Thank you very much for breaking all that down, Andrew. Really appreciate it. Hope that makes things a lot clearer for any of you at home wondering if there's porn in our schools. All right, so we avoided a national railroad workers' strike today. The White House helped union leaders and the railroad industry come to a tentative agreement after 20 hours of negotiations. But the back and forth negotiations, well, they go back years, with workers demanding higher pay and better working conditions. Any deal that gets done from here, though, still needs to be ratified. But it does look like trains will continue on tracks across the country. Had there been a strike beginning tomorrow, though, it would likely have been devastating. It would have devastated railroad service from coast to coast, including right here in Idaho, because, well, mostly our ag industry with major commodities in bulk, like our famous potatoes, well, they take rides on trains. Here's Joe Paris.
As a national railroad strike appears to be off, the value of railroad infrastructure is now on display. As union workers had worked with the railroad industry to get better pay and working conditions, there were real fears that significant sections of America's railroad system would be shut down for worker strikes. At home in Idaho, a railroad strike would have created severe implications.
A railroad strike, agricultural commodities depend on the railroad. You can't switch everything from railroad to truck overnight. That doesn't happen. And the big bulk commodities like, wheat, potatoes, corn, soybeans, et cetera, like that are moved by rail can't just be switched to truck overnight.
Sean Ellis is a spokesman for the Idaho Farm Bureau Federation. Ellis explains, a railroad strike would have had far-reaching consequences.
The implications, what I heard, would be far-reaching. They would be, I don't want to say catastrophic, but they would have been significantly bad. It would have affected everything. It would have affected every segment of agriculture. Keep in mind, Idaho's a landlocked state. We produce a lot of different ag commodities. We don't have a huge population. Virtually everything we produce here in Idaho is shipped out. So we're heavily dependent on transportation.
Another issue a railroad strike would have created in Idaho, supply lines into the gem state.
We also get a lot of, inputs for farmers and ranchers like fertilizer. Those are shipped in. So you have a double whammy there. You can't ship anything out. You can't ship anything in to keep growing food. So yeah, it would have been, I don't think anyone knows the extent of the impact, but it would have been very significant.
If railroads become unviable for shipping and receiving products because of a strike, trucks on roads would have to be the next option. But that is an option that pales in comparison to railroad infrastructure.
There's no real substitute for moving agricultural goods. Construction only move a small percentage of the big bulk ag commodities that are moved. There's no substitute at the moment for that.
The timing of a prospective deal to avoid a strike is also huge for Idaho. The strike would have been at a crucial harvest time for many Gem State ag operations.
It would have had a huge impact. And keep in mind that, so Idaho's an agricultural state. You know, we lead the nation in a lot of different categories. We produce a lot of potatoes, wheat, barley, corn, you know, and dairy products that are shipped by rail. It would have had a large negative impact on Idaho agriculture.
If Idaho operations were unable to ship their products out, they would be stuck holding on to their crops and products with the potential of seeing it spoil. That's millions of dollars left on the table.
On an average year, we produce $8.5 billion with a B dollars worth of agricultural commodities in Idaho. And like I said, virtually all of those are shipped out. So a national railroad strike would have paralyzed Idaho agriculture. And so if it truly has been averted, that would be, you know, welcome news, a big blessing to Idaho agriculture.
So what does a tentative agreement mean here in terms of avoiding a railroad strike? Well, it is good news, but the deal here, it still needs to be ratified by what's called the rank and file. As you can imagine, the top leaders of the unions, they were the ones that were negotiating and they came to a deal with the industry. However, if it's not approved by the rank and file, and there's no guarantee that'll happen, you would have another issue. You would have the situation where it looked like we could see a strike. But Brian, at this time, at 5:10 here on Thursday afternoon, it looks like the National Railroad strike will not happen. There's a strong belief that the deal that they agreed to late last night, early this morning, that President Biden helped work on, there's a belief that this will go through, and it'll be an extensive deal that would probably avoid any type of issues like this for many years to come. But until the rank and file ratify it, it's not a done deal.
So we can still send out our smoky potatoes around the rest of the country.
That's right. Your smoky potatoes, you can send them all the way to New York.
Excellent. Thank you, Joe. Okay, so no national railroad strike, but the debate and discussion over a passenger rail service rolling through the Gem State continues, well, full steam ahead. Today, Boise Mayor Laura McClain and city council members, they presented their support for restoring Amtrak service along the old Oregon Trail, the Pioneer Line they call it. Today, Caldwell is the latest Treasure Valley city to jump on board. The city wants to consider a resolution backing the return of an Amtrak service, better known as that Pioneer route from Portland. They want to go from Portland to Salt Lake with a stop in the 2C and other southern Idaho cities. Many hurdles, though, remain. Debates and agreements still needed to make a passenger service a reality in our area. Only time is going to tell. And of course, the cost is also going to tell if we get to travel to the coast or to the Great Salt Lake. Is not just limited to a car or a plane. They call it the largest flag to ever fly in America, and we can see why, which is also why they need a large space in which to fly it. Well, they found one across the Snake River Canyon. You have any other sites you think we need to see? Send them our way. Let us know about it. We'll also take your random thoughts or your piercing commentary. Just keep them clean and clever. Go ahead and text us at 208-321-5614. We read them all, but we also listen to them all, too. You can leave a voicemail at that same number, 208-321-5614. And remember, we could be sharing some of your thoughts at the end of the show.
Say we've had some thunderstorms around the area, nothing in the valley. Now here's a closer look just so we can see out around Ontario, Caldwell, down here toward Boise. Nothing here, but you can see coming in from the west that there are some thunderstorms. So let's go out just a little wider. You can see up here around, just south of Baker City, crossing the freeway. Likely here not very shortly in the Vail, Ontario area as those come in. Likely those will be north of Boise, but as you watch down here to the south, most of these storms are starting to work its way through. So far, they're all around the Boise Valley, but nothing has developed. But you gotta say that there's enough moisture and humidity in the valley at this point to develop something if we get close. So we're watching for some areas of showers and thunderstorms for tonight. Down around Twin Falls, especially to the east. If you look at Burley, we were predicting this earlier, but look at all of the lightning strikes that have to be just east of Twin Falls. And with these storms, we're looking at some pretty good rain coming down in some of these locations. And some of you likely saw some of those storms for earlier this morning too. Woke you up, saw some of the rain showers coming in. So it's all unsettled here over the northwest. We're going to continue receiving moisture in to kind of redeveloping it from time to time. So for tomorrow, we'll likely dry out just a little bit, but we still have a slight chance. Getting into the weekend, especially if you're going to the mountains, keep in mind you're going to be receiving some rain in some of those locations. We could even see some here in the valley over the weekend with the thunderstorms. It really starts to bring some of those temperatures down. As you look at next Wednesday and getting into next Thursday, high temperatures will be somewhere around 70 degrees.
All right, there's a new attraction to the Snake River Canyon in Twin Falls. It's getting a lot of attention this week, probably because it's almost impossible to miss from the top or the bottom, one side or the other. And perhaps that's because it's almost as prominent as the Perrine Bridge itself. But it does bring forth a lot more emotion.
No other place like it.
It's one of the most scenic and most picturesque parts of Idaho.
Yeah, you got the river.
And the canyon it carved.
The bridge.
And those that jump off it.
The bottom of that arch.
There's even a rock to remember those that tried to jump over it. But this week, there's one more thing to see over the Snake River in Twin Falls.
Old Glory.
In all its glory.
I wasn't expecting it to be this big.
Stands for freedom, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's pretty impressive.
It's like it's hanging there by itself.
Except it's not. It was put there by the group Follow the Flag, who took 3 days to anchor it, hang it, and finally unfurl the largest American flag to ever fly.
Hey, how big do you think that flag really is?
6 foot stripes. It's 154 feet long, 78 feet wide, so over 12,000 square feet.
It's a quarter of an acre.
I mean, that's bigger than most mansions.
Yes. I can't imagine the weight of it.
On the scale, it's 400 pounds, but its real weight is relative, considering
Why is the flag out there?
why it's here.
For 9/11.
Which is why the reaction to those who walk out here and see it for the first time
I got the goosebumps. It really touches me.
is about what you'd expect.
Big goosebumps, I'm not kidding.
It's an emotional experience for sure, for many who stop by.
Standing out there on the bridge, and I thought about 9/11 and how heart-wrenching that was, and said a few words, and still right here.
Like Tammy,
It's beautiful, it's amazing.
who moved back to Twin Falls to help her dad fight cancer.
I haven't been able to leave the house much, just taking care of him, and got about a half hour.
You could have done anything in this half hour. Why this?
Just, to be honest, to pray and hope.
Does it give you hope?
It does.
Why?
I mean, it's the flag. I mean, I keep going back to that, but I mean, it's the flag.
It's certainly enough for Gary.
For those people that were lost and to represent freedom, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
That chokes you up a bit.
Because I'm a veteran, I'm a father, and my grandfather. Last year, my bride and I, our last picture together was right here. She passed away last year.
Meanwhile,
So that's what it is.
for someone like Malika,
It doesn't really mean much to me, to be honest with you, given my ancestral history. It's not like, oh my God, I'm so proud to be an American. Like, no, not really, but it's cool to look at.
what does it make you think about?
It makes me think of my ancestors that were slaves, that did all the work, literally broke their backs to make this country what it is. Still not recognized how it should be. So, I mean, that's a lot of years, decades, centuries to just be broken like that. I mean, it's just a piece of fabric to me, really. But I mean, it's cool to look at.
But learning it was stretched across the canyon for 9/11
Yeah, that was rough.
kind of hits home.
Lost 2 family members in there. It was terrible. We couldn't find my uncle for weeks. Weeks. And the whole time he was down there helping people. We thought he was dead. So, that was rough. I mean, I understand for other people this must be like the most majestic thing they've ever seen, which is great. That's awesome.
But you have mixed feelings.
I do. But I mean, you gotta admit it does look cool waving in the wind.
And that's only the first thing Kyle hopes people notice when they see it.
I hope that people, have a new respect for the flag, that it invokes a spirit in them, that might have them stop and think on why that American flag is something that represents our country and what it means, the stories behind it.
I'm glad that there's people still doing this.
Well, in case you're wondering, the flag will fly through Saturday morning if you want to see it for yourself. And I know what else you're also wondering. How did they get it out there? Well, we're told a drone and a string to start, and then, of course, pulleys. Then they increased the weight of the cord until they got to the steel cable. Kyle Fox with Follow the Flag says hanging the giant flag began as a 4th of July stunt in Pleasant Grove, Utah back in 2015. Since then, it's taken off, and they've hung a flag in 6 different spots over the last 8 years. So will it be a regular in Twin Falls? Well, that's going to be up to the Magic Valley 9/11 Memorial, who is responsible for bringing it to Twin this week. And Maggie O'Mara is going to have more with them on Sunday, 7-0. All right, lots of comments today about what the IFF says is happening in our public schools, like this one from Lori. Maybe the IFF should stand for Idaho Fanatics Foundation. If not, it should. A couple other suggestions like, well, Incorrect Facts Foundation. IFF is certainly proving one point. Poorly educated kids grow up to be poorly educated adults. Another sad consequence of being 49th in student spending, says Sheila. What does the IFF hope to gain by slamming its own state with inaccurate information, asked Rhonda. Well, perhaps this could be best explained by, well, Steve. As usual, the IFF is a fine example of alt or far-right anti-public education terrorists who use propaganda and falsehoods to end the funding of public taxes for education. Remember, educated people make more educated voters, which terrifies people who support the IFF. We'll see you tomorrow.